Hi, I'm Dilek Tuna. Welcome to AnewZ. These are the headlines for the hour. The United States launches overnight strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities, with Trump calling them a spectacular military success. The IAEA says there is no increase in off-site radiation after the US strikes, as the agency prepares for a special meeting. The world reacts to US strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. The United States has conducted large-scale precision airstrikes on 3 major Iranian nuclear facilities. US President Donald Trump addressed the nation following the operation, calling it a spectacular military success.
The US military launched strikes on Iran's nuclear sites in Fordo, Natanz and Isfahan. After days of deliberation and before his self-imposed 2-week deadline, President Trump announced the decision to join Israel's military campaign against Iran. According to President Donald Trump, the objective was to dismantle Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and to neutralize what he called a growing regional threat.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
President Trump said the decision followed days of deliberation. He highlighted coordination with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying the two had worked closely as a team throughout the operation. Continuing his address, President Trump issued a warning to Iran, calling for peace, and stating that further military actions would be far greater if Iran did not comply.
With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago.
The US president praised the American and Israeli military forces involved, singling out General Dan Kane and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. He also announced that a Pentagon briefing will be held at 8 a.m. the following day.
President Donald Trump has declared the US strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities a major success, while also delivering stark warnings to Tehran against any retaliation. Nick Harper from Washington, D.C. reports.
US President Donald Trump, speaking from the White House, said that this had been a spectacular military success. The US targeting 3 Iranian facilities, which are known to be used to enrich uranium. Donald Trump said that they had been completely and fully obliterated. But he also warned Iran not now to retaliate, saying that future attacks from the United States would be far greater and a lot easier. And he said that Iran basically now has the ball in its court as to what takes place in the Middle East region, warning them this cannot continue, saying there will be either peace or tragedy for Iran, also pointing out that the US had many targets left that it could potentially decide to strike. So the US president, despite on Thursday saying that he would decide within the next 2 weeks whether to join Israel and strike Iran, has decided to take the decision just 48 hours after that pronouncement and going ahead with this late Saturday evening US time strike against Iran. He is painting it as a success. Tehran is vowing to retaliate. The US president is warning them not to do so unless it wants to receive more US weaponry targeting places throughout Iran. Nick Harper for AnewZ in Washington.
Iran has fired dozens of missiles at Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv and Haifa, in what appears to be the first wave of retaliation following US airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. At least 86 people were injured and a state of emergency has been declared. Trent Murray reports from Tel Aviv.
It was just after 7 a.m. local time that we saw what appears to be the first round of retaliation from Iran after those US airstrikes. Around 20 to 30 missiles fired in two separate waves, both here at Tel Aviv but also in Haifa, the third largest city in the north. Now, we are being told that the air defence systems were able to intercept most of them, but there were at least 10 impacts on the ground. 86 people reportedly injured. We are seeing scenes of significant destruction. Once again, homes and apartment buildings are bearing the brunt of much of the damage. This, of course, comes as Israel woke up to the news that President Trump has now involved the United States with those heavy bunker-busting bombs used on several of Iran's nuclear. We, of course, are tracking several groups in this region saying that they will now align with Iran and work to retaliate. Hamas and the Houthis have both put out statements saying that they are standing in solidarity with Iran and that they will be working to potentially defend them. From Israel's perspective, the state of emergency now has once again been increased to its highest level. Public gatherings have been banned. We know workplaces and schools have once again been shut. The airspace has also been closed. There were some repatriation flights in recent days. They have now been cancelled because of the situation. And we are being told even that a cruise ship carrying around 1,800 passengers had to delay its arrival here in Israel, carrying Israelis back home. It was coming into the port of Ashdod when this missile barrage took place. They were held out at sea until they were given the all clear to come into port. Trent Murray for AnewZ, Tel Aviv.
Iran has condemned US strikes on its nuclear sites and vowed retaliation. Tehran also plans legal action against the IAEA. Turaj Shirelidou reports from Tehran.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has strongly condemned US attack on Iran's nuclear sites in Isfahan, Natanz and Fordo in central Iran on Sunday. In a statement released by the Foreign Ministry, the minister said that the United States, as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, has committed a grave violation of the UN Charter. Foreign Minister Araghchi said that the events today will have everlasting consequences in the region as Iran has vowed to retaliate against any attack on its nuclear sites. He also said that in accordance with the UN Charter, Iran will retaliate and respond to the US attacks, taking and reserving its right of retaliation. Earlier today, Iran's Atomic Energy Organization, in a statement, said that Iran will sue the IAEA, International Energy Atomic Agency, for its lack of action in condemning Israeli attacks and the US attacks on Iran's nuclear sites, which are under monitoring of the United Nations. It is expected that today's attacks will have spiraling effects and increase of tension in the region, as Iran has already threatened that it will retaliate by attacking US bases and its interests within reach. Turaj Shirelidou reporting for AnewZ TV, Tehran.
And now to unpack recent developments regarding the US strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, we're joined live by Jorge Costa Oliveira, the international business consultant from Lisbon, Portugal. Jorge, can we expect Iran to retaliate directly against the US, and what are possible scenarios for Iran going forward?
Well, that is precisely what is open currently. Iran has said that it would retaliate in any case against several of the US bases in the region. So that I would deem likely to happen. I don't think they're going to retaliate against all the bases. And if we look at a statement from the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement from the 14th, it shows that the organization, that Iran could perhaps rely on some kind of defense and security assistance, is not going to do it. Russia cannot do it, China doesn't want to do it. So I think we are going to see retaliatory measures against US bases with some constraint, so that it does not close the doors for diplomatic efforts.
Okay. And what are the main risks to global businesses and economies if Iran decides to close the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, that will be a big problem. The first thing is, yes, Iran has the capability to close the Strait of Hormuz, but currently there is a lot of US Navy either there or about to arrive. And well, and it may not be as simple as it looks, but assuming it happens, the first thing that's going to happen for sure is it will bring a lot of economic uncertainty, and this will be reflected in all the stock exchanges in the world. So we should expect a plunge in stock exchanges in the very short term if that happens. The most important corollary in the short term will be the rise on the price of oil and gas. And that will be, I mean, that obviously will have implications in terms of the inflation and the futures of several commodities. So it's going to be complicated in economic and financial terms if even that possibility becomes realistic. I think this has been very carefully pondered by Iran because China depends a lot on the supply of oil and gas that comes via the Strait of Hormuz. So again, I think there will be some restraint, and although this is a potential measure with great economic damage, I don't think Iran will do it at this stage.
Okay, so you're saying retaliation is a given, but Iran would be looking at using restraint, whether it's at retaliating through the US bases in the region or closing the Strait of Hormuz. What other forms of retaliation would they try to implement in order to send a message in that case? What's your analysis there?
I don't think they want to retaliate further. Well, let's not forget that it was not Iran that started all this by attacking Israel. Mm-hmm. I think that they want to have ground to be able to come back to talks as soon as possible and to open diplomatic channels in order to. And in the coming days, I think we're going to see an attempt to diffuse radical speeches and ultra-nationalist speeches, which obviously always appear in times of war.
Okay. George, thank you so much for joining us on the program. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
The International Atomic Energy Agency says that there's been no increase in off-site radiation levels following the US bombing of 3 nuclear sites in Iran. The agency had previously called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint and warned that military escalation increases the chance of a radiological release with serious consequences for people and the environment. The Director General of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, has said that he will be convening for an emergency meeting with its Board of Governors on Monday. Grossi has been the target of much Iranian criticism in recent days for what the Islamic Republic described as conflicting statements that incited Israel's initial attack. At the centre of everything is Iran's nuclear program. Here's what is currently known about it.
Iran's nuclear program is spread over many locations. Country has 7 to 8 major nuclear facilities: Natanz, Fordo, Isfahan, Arak, Bushehr, Tehran reactor, Parchin, Arak heavy water. Natanz, Iran's primary uranium enrichment hub, about 220 kilometers southeast of Tehran in Isfahan province. It's deeply underground with both pilot and full-scale centrifuge halls. Fordo, underground enrichment facility inside a mountain near Qom. around 100 kilometers southwest of Tehran, using advanced IR-6 centrifuges. Bushehr, the country's only commercial nuclear power plant, located on the Persian Gulf coast. Arak, heavy water reactor complex southwest of Tehran, originally designed alongside the IR-40 reactor. Isfahan Center, central hub for uranium conversion, fuel production and research labs. Tehran Research Reactor, operates near Tehran, producing isotopes and used mainly for research.
World leaders have reacted to the US strike on Iran's nuclear facilities as they warn of a threat to global peace.
Leaders from around the world have reacted to the United States' involvement in the conflict between Israel and Iran. This comes as US President Donald Trump confirmed a major military strike on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi called the strike outrageous and noted that there will be everlasting consequences. Araghchi also called on the United Nations to be alarmed by the actions of the United States. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres expressed concern over the US strike and called it a dangerous escalation in a region already on the edge. Guterres said the actions are a direct threat to international peace and called on member states to de-escalate the situation. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer supported the strike and said Iran can never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, calling it a threat to international security. Colombian President Gustavo Petro has criticized the US bombings on Iran and warned that such actions endanger global peace.
Trump says he has just attacked 3 nuclear plants in Iran. In Iran, there is no development of nuclear weapons. They were thinking of peaceful development, but this act sets the Middle East on fire. This act not only affects the Middle East, but all of us here in Colombia, and that is why we have to know that the unified cry of humanity, and as President of Colombia who wants peace in Colombia, peace in Medellin, we also have to ask and demand as human beings, face to face and without bowing our heads, we demand world peace.
The US strikes on Iran come only days after Trump had issued a 2-week deadline to decide on US intervention in the conflict, with the US president stating that he wanted to give chance for negotiations.
Trade between Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan has surged by around 40% since the beginning of the year. Officials announced during the 14th meeting of Joint Intergovernmental Commission in Baku, co-chaired by Uzbekistan's Minister of Trade Laziz Kudratov and Azerbaijan's Ministry of Economy Mikhail Jabarov. Trade tripled over the past 5 years, reaching about $232 million by the end of 2023, with an additional 20% rise in early 2024. Key sectors driving this momentum include manufacturing, agriculture, transport, energy and textiles. Both sides aim to hit a $1 billion trade target within 2 years, backed by joint ventures and logistics enhancements. Uzbekistan has successfully completed its inaugural pilot freight run from its territory through Kyrgyzstan, China and Mongolia. The national carrier navigated challenging Altai mountain terrain, rising to around 1,500 metres above sea level and covering approximately 4,500 kilometres in just 8 days. This new corridor aims to open up fresh markets for domestic producers and establish alternative logistics links to East and Central Asia. The project reflects broader government efforts to diversify freight routes, enhance connectivity and forge deeper trade ties across the region. Now we take you to the town of Qakh, a vibrant mountain region in northwestern Azerbaijan where ancient history, rich culture and stunning nature come together. Here's Alia Aziz with the report.
We are here in Gach, a vibrant, mountainous town in the northwestern region of Azerbaijan, where history, culture, and nature come together in one of the country's most captivating regional destinations. Let's explore this town together and uncover the stories hidden in its hills, villages, and ancient landmarks. The day began in the historic village of Ilisu, once a key stop along the Silk Road. Stone-paved paths led to the Ulu Mosque, one of the oldest surviving religious structures in the region, and the iconic Ulu Bridge, an 18th century architectural masterpiece. We then visited Ichere Bazaar, the heart of Gakh's old trading quarter, with its narrow stone streets and traditional architecture. The journey continued toward the village of Lakit, famous for its untouched natural beauty and spiritual landmarks. One of the highlights was an off-road adventure to Mamurla Waterfall, a moss-covered cascade hidden in the forest. Just beyond, the Yedi Kise, or Seven Churches, monastery complex offers a glimpse into Azerbaijan's early Christian heritage, dating back to the 5th century, and also it was historically part of the Caucasian Albania. We also had the chance to experience local village life at the Lakit Bee House, where we tasted organic honey, explored the surrounding farmland, all while surrounded by the breathtaking Caucasus Mountains. This immersive journey is part of a media tour supported by the Azerbaijan Tourism Board, which continues its dedicated efforts to showcase the country's regional gems. Through initiatives like these and their national campaign, #ExperienceAzerbaijan, they aim to promote sustainable tourism, cultural discovery, and the hidden beauty of places like Gach.
That's all we have now from Baku. Stay tuned to AnewZ for more updates and have a good day.